This video is sponsored by Surfshark. More on this helpful VPN later. It is time. We are officially making over that powder room bathroom. Yes, my friends, that powder room bathroom. Hello DIY friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danny and today's DIY in progress has been a much anticipated project since November of 2022. We are officially tackling the powder room bathroom that belongs to my mother-in-law Daphne. But before we get into it, if you are new here, then hello, welcome. Feel free to hit that subscribe button and join this marvelous creative beast family. We do all things home and DIY, and sometimes we can get a bit weird, but we like weird here. So with that said, grab your favorite hot cold beverage combo and take a seat because we have a lot of DIY work ahead of us. Editor, roll the tape. Boop. So let's do a quick refresher. My mother-in-law Daphne lives in a really unique church that was built in 1880 and converted into a livable home in 1984. I gotta say, I love this space. It's got your classic cathedral style windows, open concept main floor, beautiful wood details, and a killer view. Now, Daphne has done a lot of work to update this church already, but the powder room on her main floor made her feel uninspired. So she asked if I could come in and help her with a really unique design that is going to turn this bathroom from wow to wow. That's when Fiverr got on board. I hired 3 designers. They came up with 3 plans. We went over the plans. We picked the elements we liked, and boom, a design plan was born. Now, a few updates and changes have been made to that design plan since our last conversations, but I would say that the general plan is still the same. But I did want to reiterate the general goals outlined for this drabby, dreary, Debbie Downer bathroom, and they were as follows. Daphne wanted this to be light and bright, has personality and an interesting statement art, small floating sink and wood slab countertop, clean lines, modern with edge, new lighting, includes a ceiling light, new cost-saving floor, toilet paper storage, no florals, and a unique towel rack holder. Honestly, I have never felt so confident that I've hit all of the requirements, so I was feeling excited and I was ready to start this makeover. To start this journey, I ended up getting in there a few weeks earlier. Daphne was painting her ceilings and walls, which was starting to look excellent, but I needed to get that dated vanity out so that the plumbing could be looked at because I was putting a floating sink in this space and the current plumbing was not set up for this. I gotta say, I always love pulling away furniture from walls and finding out what the original color of the room used to be. It was a lovely yellow. But I took this opportunity to remove the hardware and decor from the space and started measuring for the height of the new sink. Yes, that teeny tiny sink, which rocked a beautiful brass P-trap underneath as it would be on display. But if we hooked the sink up to the current plumbing, this sink would be super low. So the wall had to be opened up just a little to see where the pipes lived. And then we used a laser line to mark the new height, opened up the wall, and removed a section of drywall that ran stud to stud on either side of the sink. Essentially, we were making a T shape on the wall because I wanted to add a big 2x6 stud across so that sink could be installed to it, and eventually our floating shelves would have a stud then to install to. Now, on this day, I also wanted my husband Jeffrey to help run electrical from the ceiling fan that was already there so we could hook up a ceiling light in the middle of the room. Now, in theory, this was meant to be simple. We found out that the electrical for the fan wasn't running through the ceiling like we hoped. It actually went across down the wall and then over. So we had to open up the ceiling even more to find it, but it was then we found out that the electrical wire that the fan was actually running from was exposed. It was chewed by some animal, so it was kind of a blessing in disguise in some ways, but we couldn't leave it that way. So the entire thing had to get replaced. Then we found out that the ceiling was double joisted, and then suddenly the entire ceiling was just removed. Now, to be fair, once you have like 2 patches to make in your ceiling, it's sometimes just easier to go buy a new piece of drywall for 15 bucks and just patch the entire ceiling in one chunk versus pieces. It'll look better, it'll be more seamless. It just wasn't what I was expecting to happen that day. But all that said, the plumbing, the ceiling, and the drywall that we took out on the wall did eventually get replaced and patched, and now we can finally get to day 1 of the official DIY makeover. DIY friends, just taking a small break before we get into our bathroom makeover to quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark. In today's virtually forward-thinking world, keeping our computers and cellular devices safe has never been more important. Honestly, just last week, I found out that people's phones were getting hacked at the airports because they were like using these on-site charging ports to charge their computers or phones, but then hackers found a way to integrate their malware into these charging ports. So while you were innocently charging your phone or your laptops, these hackers were literally stealing all of your personal information off your devices. And I think that's crazy. And it's really scary. How do we stop that? Well, let me tell you, we have to do everything we can to keep our information protected, and that's why a VPN like Surfshark should be your next download if you do not have a VPN protecting your literal everything. So what is Surfshark? Surfshark VPN keeps your online identity safe by encrypting all of your information sent between your devices and the internet. So this keeps your personal data protected from big companies or cyber criminals. But even when you're using that free public Wi-Fi in places like airports or coffee shops, which is a gold mine for hackers, may I add, Surfshark VPN will encrypt your online data and help secure any and all of your personal information. They also have a clean web feature that blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts so that you can surf those online waves carefree, my friends. Now, if you were home on your personal IP, it's great because they will mask your IP address so that your city, country, and download history aren't even linked to your identity. That's the scary security stuff. But then let's talk about the fun stuff you get having a VPN on your side, like access to geo-blocked content. Let me tell you a little story. Last year, I went to visit my wonderful friend Sam the DIY Huntress in New York. Every night we watched Project Runway that was available on Netflix, and I was on cloud nine. And then till then I came home and Project Runway was no longer available to me in Canada, so what did I do? Well, I opened up my Surfshark app, changed my VPN to the US, and voila, the competition continued. Don't judge me, you know how addicting that show is. But the best part, Surfshark has 3,200 plus servers in 100 plus countries, which has come in handy for my excessive anime watching habits. But beyond it all, my favorite thing is that Surfshark does not monitor, track, or store what you do online. That means no connection or activity logs. We need to keep our Project Runway obsession to ourselves, okay? Shh. So if you are looking to keep your devices safe and your content flowing, use the link and code in my description box to get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out. All right, friends, now that our devices are safe, let's get back to DIYing, shall we? Woohoo! Okay, look at this beautiful piece of maple. She's just gorgeous. I was able to source this for $75, which honestly I think is amazing. It's thick, she's 2 inches, and like she's everything I needed it to be. We're gonna be doing 2 pieces, one longer piece and then a shorter piece that lives on the other side of the sink. And this is going to be floating, so let me show you. Now, we've all seen this hardware before. This is just going to help me create like a floating ledge. So once we have all of this squared up, I'm going to be routing out the back like a little channel so that this can sit in flat. We can attach this to the wall and then we can put it right into the live edge. So I think it's going to be really nice and easy. I also made my life a lot easier and went and rented a circular saw. Because this is such a hard wood, it's so dense to cut through that my battery-operated circular saws sometimes just won't cut it. I'm just going to do some measurements, square this whole thing up, and then we will get cutting. One thing I did not anticipate was just how dry this board was. I mean, it was kiln dried, but boy, she was dry, which means it was going to be hard to cut through at 2 inches thick, and even the best of the saws are going to struggle. So yes, it smoked a lot. Maybe if I get my fan. So with the fan in place, I was able to cut through both sides, keeping the smoke out of my face. The sides looked a little burnt, but that could be fixed. And then I cut my board to size on my chop saw. I got both pieces cut, but immediately regretted this because my next step was to clean up the top and bottom of the board. And don't you think it would be easier to plane one board at the same time versus two boards, which then we would have to size up against each other? Hello, don't do what I did. Work smart, not hard, friends. But regardless of my dumb decisions, I did plane both boards with ease, made a giant mess, and after we had two boards ready to go, and I used my finish sander to remove some of those burnt sections on the edges. The larger boards, I had a few sections that needed my hand planer just to remove some of the sections, but after that I was able to take my sander to clean it up. Regardless of everything, I think they came together nicely, and I was left with two beautiful maple boards. So I actually meant to bore the holes out that day so that the hardware could fit inside, but then I realized I didn't have the right size bit, so I needed to wait. So instead, I brought the boards into my studio space, and using a wood conditioner, I covered the two boards, prepping them to take a new stain color. Maple is notorious for being blotchy, so using the conditioner is going to help prevent that, but it will lighten the wood stain you put on, so just be aware of that when you apply conditioner on. Maple's natural color has a very yellowy honey tone to it, which you can see come through when I apply the conditioner to it, and Daphne didn't want this look, and neither did I, so I went with special walnut to warm it up a little. After the first coat, I knew it was going to need a second. It just still wasn't where I wanted it to be, but boy, did they look good. The grain of this piece was so beautiful, and I was happy with what I was able to accomplish that day. It was day 2, and I was finally ready to get into that bathroom to begin all the prep work, starting with the awesome trim detail from the original design plans.
Hey, listen up, I've tried to tell you this 100 times. Not getting better by lying there pretending to cry. You on repeat, you can see, cause you have closed your eyes. You say you listen, but you're missing what it's all about. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah. I've tried to help you, but you keep reading between the lines. There's nothing there for you to complicate, we're not aligned. You say you listen, but guessing that's just another sign of growing up. You're growing old, your life keep passing. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry.
This is way too much fun.
Out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah.
Okay, we are in the space. We have a lot of company today. We got Kenobi, we got Joe. Look at this little nugget. Where's Bentley? There's that little. And then we got Barley here. And then we got Daphne up there painting away. It's a full house today, and there's a lot going down. Okay, so check this out. I brought this paint suit, and look at this. It says DIY in progress on it. What do you think? Do you like it? I know I love you, boo. I feel ready to paint. Check it out. We have cranes, everyone, not herons. We have cranes.
Now, in the planning video, I actually kept calling these birds herons, but everyone reminded me that they were cranes. Forgiveness, please. They're cranes, everyone. They're cranes. this is a personal preference for sure, but this wallpaper was peel and stick, which would I ever suggest peel and stick to someone who can handle a permanent install? No. With the paste, the paper has some time to move and shift, but with peel and stick, once it's down, there is no play, and the more you lift it up to fix it, the less sticky it gets. And this wallpaper was thick, but the more you lifted it up, it would stretch, so we kind of had a bit of a rough time lining it up, but we did get there. We always get there.
Gord, what's on the wallpaper?
Swans.
Swans? What did you say before?
Eagle.
Definitely an eagle.
So that evening I came home, I really wanted to get the hardware holes drilled into the maple boards before I put a finish on the boards, just in case anything happened and it needed to be fixed, but that wouldn't happen. So using a 1/2-inch spade bit, I asked Jeff if he could help. My wrist was not feeling great from a previous injury, so I asked if he could drill the holes while I assisted with holding of the board and using the vacuum. I also had to cut one of the brackets to fit the smaller shelf, but all that said, the event went pretty smooth and we got her done.
Good morning, friends. Back in the church. We got our poochies today. Just started a fire to warm this space up. It's just a miserable day. It's raining and it's just cold, and it's just one of those things that just gets into your bones. But that's okay because we are inside and we are going to be stuck in a teeny tiny bathroom today.
Now, as per the DIY plan, we were doing some muted checkered floors. Now, I know I just did checkered floors in my own home, but it was actually this design that inspired my checkered floors. So I'm a personal fan. Not everybody feels this way, but I think they just add such fun and character to a space. And Daphne, she just really wanted to give these floors a new look without dropping some dough to pull up and retile that space. So I really felt like the DIY route was the answer.
All right, so the first color that we have, this is going to be our base coat. This is called Arid Landscape. Again, not very exciting. It definitely has a little brown of an undertone to it, but it's very calming. It's really close to the color we put on the walls. And then we have Desert Khaki. So this one's just a little bit deeper. It's kind of beigey, but I think it's going to play very nicely with the light tone. And then, of course, we have our bonding primer. So this is really great for tile, glass, glossy finishes, and metal. So we're going to put this primer down on the floors first, and then once that's on, then we can start with the full color. We're just going to paint the whole thing creamy, and then we can do our checkered pattern on top. Okay, friends, while the floor is drying, I thought we could do a little art project together. So Daphne really wanted this kind of cool, unconventional art piece, something that would make you laugh, make you kind of stare at it when you walked in. So I want to show you guys what I got for her. As we all know, she has a Chihuahua. His name is Bentley. And I reached out to a maker on Etsy. I will put their Etsy store on screen here, and asked them if they could make one of those hilarious portraits of their dog. I'm obsessed. I know she's gonna love this. So I really love it. However, two things. One, I got a frame for it, but I don't love this frame. As you can see, it's kind of I wanted it to be like an antique gold, but it's kind of weird. It's just a little bit too shiny. So I thought we could take some Rub and Buff antique gold, and we're just going to cover the whole thing in an antique gold. The other thing I want to do is the fact that this art piece, it's meant to look like an oil painting, which is great, but it really looks like a picture of an oil painting, you know what I mean? And so there's this really cool technique out there that you can create kind of more vintagey, realistic looking oil paints just from a picture by adding Mod Podge on top. Mod Podge. Words. So I have a matte Mod Podge, and we're just going to cover over the whole thing, and we're actually going to use a mat from this frame to put it onto. We're going to glue it down to that, and then we're going to cover it with Mod Podge on top, and we're going to use a brush to do it. So because we're using brush strokes in the Mod Podge, when it dries and it hits that light, it actually looks like brush strokes. So it's gonna be really cool. We're just moving and shaking, my friends. Moving and shaking. Woohoo!
The first coat of paint did need 2 coats before I was ready for the second color, which was to be expected, but the second color went on beautifully. I ended up painting these by hand, using a smaller brush for the edges and a larger brush to fill it in. This saved me a lot of time from excessive taping, and I think it added to the organic nature of the tile. I loved the softness of the khaki color against the cream. It was a fun floor without really taking personality away from the wallpaper, which was already bringing life to this space. And once I was done, I was then literally watching paint dry. Super fun. But the floor did eventually dry, and to seal it up, I used a low luster concrete brick and tile sealer. And if you regularly watch my channel, then you know this stuff, and I simply rolled it on using a foam roller and covered the entire surface. This stuff will leave a little bit of a sheen, but nothing too crazy, which I like. And speaking of sealers, that night I got home and added a clear satin finish to my beautiful maple boards, ready to install for the next day. It was finally the final day of the powder room makeover, and I had Josh with me for support. The floor was looking so great, and that space was just really starting to come together. Now our first task was to get the new sink installed. Using a level, a laser level, and that handy dandy new 2x6 stud that was installed behind the wall. How convenient. I first installed my 2 lag bolts using 2 nuts tightened up against each other to help drive them in with my impact driver. We then added on the sink, installed all the necessary hardware that came with the sink to hold it in place, and voila, we had a new handy dandy hanging sink. Next was installing the floating shelves. We marked it off where the brackets sat on the wall, made sure it was level, and then simply drilled them into place using the stud in behind. We didn't have to anchor it or do anything weird. We could just drill it right into the stud because we planned ahead, and that was such a beautiful thing. After the floating shelves were installed, I moved on to my new sconce lighting. These were sourced right from the original design plan, and they were easy peasy to install. I then moved on to the ceiling light, which looked very similar to the sconces, but it had 3 bulbs, which looked so fun from outside the bathroom because you could see it through the little window at the top. Just very fun. I love that light. It's just kind of cool and very sci-fi, but very modern.
All right, guys, so Daphne asked for a unconventional towel rack. Daphne's a person who loves conversation pieces, and then I remembered she loved horses, and she used to have horses, and then I found a horse bed, and I thought this could be really cool because look at the shape. It's actually a towel rack shape. So I thought what we can do is take this, we'll install it underneath the shelf, and then you have your little rack that you can hang your towel off of. If you think this isn't unconventional, I say nay.
Next step was the mirror. Nothing too crazy to say about the mirror. It was rounded on the edges and gold. I really loved this one though. But after installing it on the wall and seeing the color of gold clash with the gold details of the sconces, I just knew something wasn't right. This is the thing about ordering brass anything online. You really kind of never know what kind of brass or gold finish it's going to come in. It was a risk that didn't pay off, and I knew after seeing it on that wall that mirror needed to be black. So a little DIY surgery had to be done. came together, let's go back and remind ourselves just how dank and dark and dreary this bathroom started so we can really appreciate the end result. Daphne wanted this little bathroom to feel light and bright, show off personality, clean lines, be modern but with an edge, reveal a unique towel rack holder, and interesting statement art. And I don't know about you, but I think we checked all the boxes on this one. Now, I didn't have a reveal of Daphne's reaction, but I can assure you she loved it so much. DIY friends, thank you so much for joining me on this DIY bathroom journey. What did you think? Are you in love with this modern, unpredictable bathroom as much as I am? Make sure to comment below and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really helps my channel out, and subscribe if this hasn't convinced you to join in this DIY community. We do so much here. Once again, sending a big thank you again to the sponsor of this video, Surfshark. A reminder to use the link and special code DIYDanny in my description box to get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. And sending so much love to my Patreon family. If you are looking for a community of DIYers to root you on, to give you advice, then my Patreon is the place for you. I have linked it in my description box, so please go check it out. But of course, my friends, as always, stay positive, stay creative, and keep on DIYing. Bye-bye.